Welcome to another live episode of the Eric Crocker Show. I'm your host, former NFL and AFL defensive back. And of course, every Wednesday we are joined by the great Coach Dezi. So she got her stat sheet ready. She's locked and loaded. She's ready to go. I'm locked and loaded. I'm ready to go to talk about some 49ers versus Dallas Cowboys. I'm not going to lie. I hate the Dallas Cowboys. This week is more personal than probably anything else in my life for the most part, right? Like just the Dallas Cowboys, my hatred for them. So I get up for this. If anybody follows me on Twitter, you're going to see like, dang, Crock is really up for this. All right. So we're going to talk about all that and more. Appreciate everybody that's in here in the chat right now. Make sure that everybody likes and subscribes this video. And of course, this show. Oh my goodness. I keep forgetting to send in the underdog fantasy. My bad, y'all. My bad. The people that won the underdog fantasy, my bad. I'm going to get y'all two in there and then we'll do another one on Friday as well. But appreciate everybody that's in the chat right now. Underdog Fantasy, promo code Crocky. Download the app. And right there it says they'll double your initial deposit up to $100. But nah, man, they're doubling it up to $500. All right, $500. So okay, let's talk about that right for a second. Mental health. I see the Flames in here. I see Khalil Young with the Flames. Let's go. Everybody's feeling good. All right, here we go. Ricardo right here with the Flames. All right, Mr. 973. Let's go. Everybody feeling good. The Flames are coming in bright and early. But I'm gonna tell you what. I'm not feeling well. No, I am feeling good. That's not the way to do it. That's not the way to say it. I always talk about mental health. And for me, I think I've always put my mental health on the back burner because as a man, y'all know how it is. There's a lot of pressure on men from a day-to-day basis just to be the provider, the caretaker. And a lot of times I think we just ignore it. I know I definitely do. I just ignore it, right? Like whatever I'm going through or whatever, like it doesn't matter. I gotta make sure the kids is good. I gotta make sure my wife is good. I gotta, make sure I'm on whatever it is I'm doing. And when I moved back out here to California, I told myself I'm not gonna do anything but focus on my podcast. And obviously, like, work out, stuff like that, of course. But I'm not going to do anything but focus on that. And I feel like I keep adding like these like little things or there's these little things that keep throwing off my routine of things, which in turn make my days way shorter than it has to be. I think I'm wording this wrong, but ultimately last night I finally felt that like I'm doing too much. Like this is not how my week is supposed to be structured. I know I have certain things. I have a few obligations that's 100% guaranteed, right? Like Locked On 49ers, that's at the top, right? Aside from taking care of family and kids and etc. All right, but Locked On 49ers, like this is a job. And I think between Locked On, Bleacher Report, I do the morning show, my friends and family, they don't look at podcasting as like a job. They know it is a job for me, but they don't view it that way. So I think everybody, because I have a certain level of flexibility, is like, oh, you could do this or you could do that. But every time I take on one more thing, it like pushes this away or that away. So I talked about my focusing on podcasting and really this channel, right? Like I love this channel. I wanted to continue to grow. I'm not doing the necessary things for this channel to grow the way it could because there's always this thing that kind of throws it off. And then this thing that throws it off. So then now I'd say the last few times I've recorded, I haven't cut up any segments and posted those separately because I got done with this. Okay, now I got to go do this. Okay, then I got to take my kid here. Then I got to go do this. Then my daughters are home for school. So a lot of this stuff kind of throws me off a little bit. And I don't know, I guess I'm saying that to say like, just be aware of where you are in your mental space. And I know my wife last night was like, just take tomorrow off, like just chill tomorrow. And I'm like, no, I got obligations I'm going to do, but just make sure that whatever you're doing, like be aware of what's going on. And then at some point you got to get back on track. So I know for me, I got to get back on track. I took on coaching. I said I wasn't going to coach this year. I'm out there coaching. I said I wasn't going to train athletes this year. I trained a bunch of athletes Monday and I love training athletes. I love working with them, but everything that I do takes away from the main thing, which is my job, which is podcasting. So pay attention to the mental part of the thing. I know, especially as men that are in here, we tend to put our mental health on the back burner. But I felt it. Like I felt it last night. Like something ain't right. Like I'm a little off. You know what I'm saying? And my wife was like, "You're a little off. Everything good?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think I'm like doing too much. I'm doing too much." And typically I just do it regardless, but I'm more aware of that now. Anyways, y'all didn't come on here to hear me vent about that. Y'all came on here to see and talk to the lovely Coach Dezi. Coach Dezi, how you doing?
Woo! We're in the big week. Dallas versus San Fran. I am ready to go.
I am too. This week I get a little more turned up. I get a little bit more amped up. And on Twitter, I try to be more uh how I am on this channel, like, just even cool. I get my takes here and there. But there's something about this Cowboy week that like takes me back to like real Stockton, California Crocky, and not the politically correct Crocky on social media. If y'all see me on Twitter and it's like, dang, Croc is a little extra charged up, it's because I hate the Dallas Cowboys. Can you talk to us about one of your earliest memories of the Dallas Cowboys and 49ers as a rivalry, or just your early thoughts on that team and kind of what it means to you when you see that star on the helmet?
It's a visceral response. That's all I can say. Just visceral. And I hate to say this because I really try not to judge people, but when I find out that someone is a Cowboys fan right out of the gate, there is a part of me that's like, ooh, like it's just a little dagger that gets thrown of like, tread lightly, tread lightly. I don't know if we trust this individual. So, but I mean, I grew up in the Montana Aikman. Like I grew up in, my childhood was rooted in, the dynasty that started with Joe Montana. So my mom was a fan of the Steelers and the 49ers back in the day when the 49ers weren't that great. And you had Steel Curtin and Terry Bradshaw and Lynn Swann and all those greats playing for Pittsburgh. But for whatever reason, it must be the red and gold attracted me. And I always loved the 49ers. And then Montana came in and it was just, it was beautiful from there. So to watch all of that, it's interesting you're asking me about that because today, watching Brock Purdy, I compare it to how I felt as a fan when Montana was at the helm. Steve Young is amazing. And I heard you say that was your childhood was Steve Young, and he was fantastic. There was a bit of a, like just personality wise, I feel like Brock's in between him and Montana because, Steve was very serious and, just so. And, Montana knew how to lighten the mood and be a little bit jokey and, play practical jokes and things like that. And I don't think Brock is that, but just his presence in the pocket, his maturity, how he is just as a leader and the confidence that I gain as a fan is equivalent to how I felt. Like when I was out there watching, Montana throw, I was like, oh, this is happening. This ball is going to connect. And I wasn't as timid about that. And that's how I feel with Brock at the helm today. So, but to answer your actual question, this girl does not wear silver and I do not wear blue. Does not happen.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And mine runs deep like that. My big brother. All right. So first I gotta take it back a little bit. And maybe we can bring other people on to talk about their Cowboy stories. But my big brother, diehard Dallas Cowboy fan. And he got that from my uncle. So growing up, our dad wasn't really around. So our father figure was kind of our uncle, and he played college football, he was recruited, all that. So we kind of wanted to be like him. And because he's a Cowboy fan, a lot of people ask me because my teams are all mixed up. And some of it makes no sense. Like there's some people that be like, Croc, you're a UCLA basketball team, but you like USC football. Like, how does that work? They're rivals. And every team that I support has come from someone that I've either look up to or know or whatever. So how did I become a 49er fan? My mom. My mom, when I was 5 years old, I asked my mom, who's your favorite football team? And she said the 49ers. And I said, okay, I'm a 49er fan. So like I didn't become a 49er fan because of where I lived, which at the time I was in San Jose, but it wasn't because of where I lived. It wasn't because of, oh, this is the hot team right now. I became a 49er fan because my mom was a 49er fan. And then like the Lakers, people ask like, why do you like the Lakers? When I was young, I asked my uncle, like, who's your favorite basketball team? He said the Lakers. He likes the Warriors now. I don't know how he switched up, but he was like, oh, I like the Lakers. And at that time, I understand it, So in the early 90s, I chose to be a Laker fan. Like that's how I became. It didn't matter where I lived or anything like that. Uh, I know a lot of people have different reasons as to why they become a 49er fan or Cowboy fan or whatever. But because my uncle and my brother were Cowboy fans, it rooted this deep hatred with me. I mean, every time the 49ers and Dallas Cowboys played, it was like war in our house, right? I mean, my brother and I, we would fight over it. We would play like John Madden, like Madden 95. And, we have the 49ers versus Cowboys. And if he won, like I'd cry and go tell my mom and she'd get upset and tell us to stop playing the game. Like it is rooted all the way to back then. And like I could just think of so many memories of just being so upset and distraught about maybe the 49ers lost to the Cowboys, or if the 49ers beat the Cowboys, like how would I feel about that? And uh now that I'm older, I feel like my hatred isn't even directed towards the Cowboys as much. It's really their fans. I hate their fans. So again, if y'all see me a little extra charged up this week, it might not even be because of the Cowboys. It's like I hate your fans. I really hate everything about the Dallas Cowboys. So I went to the 49ers versus Cowboy playoff game and watched the 49ers beat the Cowboys. Like that was one of the highlights of my life. Seeing the Cowboy fans sick. I mean, they were sick leaving the stadium, heads down.
Lots of
I mean,
memes.
just
Lots of memes came
oh
from
man. And I was talking. I'm glad nobody tried to like bomb on me from the side. Cause I was like, y'all thought this was sweet. Get out of here. This is our house. Like, I'm talking. They can't shut me up. And then the 49ers beat them in the playoffs last year. So, especially even in this regular season game, it's going to mean a lot to both teams, organizations, and fan bases. I do want to get into the game and start with some things that might potentially worry us. All right. And I know you have a whole stat sheet and you got things highlighted and everything. But I want to really start with, there you go. I want to start with the Dallas Cowboys defense because right now for the 49ers, for the most part, again, this is a team that has scored 30 points or more in every game so far. They're 4-0. Cowboys are 3-1. Obviously, Cowboys had an ugly loss to the Arizona Cardinals. But when you see the 49ers and how well they've done offensively, I wonder, do they have to play that well offensively for the 49ers to win? We've seen the defense play well. We've seen the defense look weird, right? The 49ers dominated the New York Giants. And I think now we can kind of see, like, I think the Giants just suck. But 49ers dominated the New York Giants, only allowed 150 yards. They turn around, and the Cardinals were able to move the ball a decent amount, even though it only results in 16 touchdowns. I think it only results in 16 touchdowns because of how well the 49ers offense played. When you score on all but one drive, that puts a lot of pressure on opposing offenses to try to match that, right? It's like, man, we can't mess up. And when they don't score, these 49ers have these long, sustainable drives where they're continuing to get points. And I think that has tremendously helped the 49ers defense, especially in the Arizona Cardinals game. So when I look at the Dallas Cowboys and the defense they have the ability to get stops. This is currently the number 2 defense in the NFL. They're actually ranked ahead of the 49ers. 49ers are still top 5, but the Cowboys are number 2 in the NFL defensively. They have Micah Parsons, who potentially can be Defensive Player of the Year. We'll see. Watt is having an exceptional start to his season, but you look at Parsons and the impact that he has on games. He is explosive. He is dynamic. He's probably the freakish defensive player in the NFL. I've heard him be compared to Lawrence Taylor. I wasn't old enough to watch Lawrence Taylor, or at least Lawrence Taylor in his prime, but just what it sounds like, how he was utilized, how he moved, and how he can wreck games. And it feels like Micah Parsons is that type of guy that can actually, if there's one thing that can throw this game off, it's his ability to make plays and really get to the quarterback. So what are some of your thoughts right now on the 49ers offense versus Dallas Cowboys defense?
Okay, so I took a look at this, and I think we have a bit of an advantage. So the weakness that Dallas has in their defense is rushing. I don't even need to say anything more than that. As 49er fans, we've got Christian McCaffrey, Superman, right? So he is going – I expect this to be a full rushing game. We're going to just keep throwing it down their throat, rush, rush. And I think that's the way that we attack it. But you're right. This is a defense that we've not really been up against. This is we cannot underestimate their ability to do takeaways. They've had, I think they average like 10 takeaways. They're number 2 in the NFL for takeaways. So, I mean, we have to continue to play clean, as Brock Purdy has been super efficient, super clean. I think we just need to continue to do that, continue to do what we do best. I think this game is going to be about our defense. Our defense needs to be stepping up. We have declined in our red zone percentages. So we've allowed red zone scoring and this is purely touchdowns alone. We went from 57% last year to 66%. That's a 10% worsening in our red zone percentage. The good news is Dallas is terrible in the red zone. So that, I think those two things are my keys to victory for this game. Is one, we've got to rush the ball because we do it well and they don't defend it as great. And number 2 is making sure that we do not allow them to do anything in the red zone, as they haven't been able to produce. They're like one of the worst in the NFL for that. Yeah.
And that's crazy because you look at Dak Prescott, and I know he gets a lot of, I don't want to use the word hate. I think because of the team he plays for, there's a bigger spotlight on him than there should be. I think Dak Prescott generally is a top 10 quarterback or top 10 caliber, right? Now, he's probably towards that bottom 10. We'll say he's around 9 or 10. But typically, he plays very well for them within the context of how they utilize him in their offense. And you watch him against Arizona, they had an opportunity to kind of come back. And they started doing some weird things. And I didn't know if they were doing these weird things because they didn't trust their quarterback or because that was just they knew, well, we have to score twice, so it doesn't matter how long it takes us to score in this first one. But Dallas Cowboys ran the ball. Gosh, I mean, it was like 4 times on that 5 times on the last drive against Arizona. And then ultimately Dak Prescott threw an interception in the end zone. So it was kind of justified as maybe they were trying to keep the ball on the ground, even though they needed 2 scores. If there's anybody that can kind of be the X factor in this game, it is Dak Prescott. But fortunately for the 49ers, they kind of had his number. I've watched Dak Prescott have big games. When the Cowboys played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers wild card round last year, he threw for over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. That has not been the Dak Prescott that the 49ers have seen. All right. When you look at the wild card round a couple years ago, that Dak Prescott was not good. Turned the ball over, wasn't accurate, under pressure, under the rail, wasn't a good outing for him. When you look at the Dak Prescott last game, same thing. He was off. And, so I think for the 49ers, especially the fans, we look at Dak Prescott like, hey, this guy's not good. But I think he is good. He just hasn't been good against the 49ers. So can the 49ers and their defense continue to kind of dominate Dak Prescott? And I think that's one of the keys to this victory.
Yeah. Dak, he can get the ball down the field. So I looked it up. They are number 1 in the NFL for third down conversions. I was surprised by that. 51.6% of the time they'll convert on third down. So he can get the ball down the field. It's the red zone. So I wonder, you talked about mental health. It's interesting that you brought that up. And I'm glad that you did a mental check to yourself and was able to identify what's happening so you can try to manipulate your schedule and be able to say no. For Dak, I wonder, anxiety gets heightened in the red zone. He's coming off an injury. The one thing that he hasn't been since his injury is a mobile quarterback, and he was a dual threat prior to that injury. So I wonder what's going on, if there is a mental component to this, because really, if Dallas can figure out their red zone problems and get things happening in that realm, they're significantly a different team. They also tend to not perform well in big games, right? In the postseason, they get as far as they can, and then postseason comes and it goes downhill, which is a benefit to us because we've capitalized on that. But I just wonder, I just sometimes want to chat with some of these players and just find out a little bit more. I do like Dak Prescott. I think he's a heck of a quarterback. And it just seems that since this injury, he's just not been the same quarterback that he was prior to that.
Yeah, he definitely was a little bit more mobile, a little bit more of a playmaker with his legs, and we haven't quite seen that. If you want to see him kind of make some plays with his legs, I remember it was a wild card round, probably their last playoff win. No, because they won last year. They beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So a year or two prior, they played against Seattle Seahawks, and he used his legs and he was running and trying to score touchdowns on the ground, and that really helped them in the red zone. But you talked about their red zone woes right now. I think a lot of it has to do with Dak not maybe seeing the field well in that short area or being able to make quick decisions, or the lack of not having Ezekiel Elliott. And I think that has made a big difference in their red zone scoring efficiency. He was a guy where even last year, where it's like, oh, this is not the same Dak Prescott. He was the same Dak Prescott in the red zone. He was still scoring touchdowns down there, especially on the goal line. So not having him, we'll see how they can try to work around that. I did hear that they have done some things with Trey Lance, trying to figure out different ways to potentially work him in. So they're trying to fix their red zone issues right now, however they can. Not exactly sure how they'll do it. And then obviously, if you watch them against the Patriots, which I was kind of going back and forth in that game. I mean, they completely destroyed and dominated the Patriots. They were playing at the same time as the Niners, so I didn't catch all of it. But I hope that version of the Cowboys that we just saw against the Patriots, who dominated, and that was a game where I'm like, well, anytime you have, anytime you have Belichick on the other side, I'm like, okay, what's he going to do defensively to try to slow these teams down? They did not slow the Dallas Cowboys down at all. And I mean, it was a drumming from beginning to end. So you have the Cowboys, which for them, I'd say is a good thing, right? To see how do we respond to adversity? We have a game against the Arizona Cardinals. We go into this game where the heavy favorites and you lose, right? They kick your butt. And then you are all right, we gotta go, we gotta play the New England Patriots. Like, let's get back to what we do. And they did. Whatever that is, it worked to the highest degree. I mean, they completely dominated the Patriots. So now it's like, all right, they've gone through some adversity. They had to recover. Then now they go and play a San Francisco 49er team who is hot, clicking. Again, you got a 4-0 team against a 3-1 team. 49ers really haven't been challenged by these opposing defenses, at least not to the extent of what Cowboys are able to do. So I'm curious to see how that whole thing plays out. We do got some chats in here. And here's from Eddie. He says, Crock, your uncle corrupted you. Celtics #1. My dad was a Niner fan, so I follow him in those footsteps. Now my son is one too. Shout out to Coach Dezi. Okay. And that's the interesting thing with how some of this stuff works, right? It's like everybody thinks you have to be from a certain place. I hear it a lot during the basketball season because I get to chirping about my Lakers, and people are like, you ain't even a real 49er fan. How are you a Niner fan and a Warrior fan? I'm like, are you guys a grown-ups or what? Like, why you guys talk like that? Like, dude, my uncle. All right, but that's cool to see that his son followed in his footsteps because Eddie, I believe, lives on the East Coast. So
Yeah.
that's what's up there.
I was born in Arizona, so us Arizonians, shout out to Brock Purdy. But I grew up on the East Coast, so I got that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, like, how are you a 49er team? All right, so we got one right here. CMC didn't play good last postseason against the Dallas Cowboys. That's a game, and I've talked about, my schedule and stuff like that. I was coaching 7-on-7, so half of the 49ers versus Cowboys game, I was actually, like, driving and had, like, the phone propped up, so all the kids were in, like, this van, and we're watching it or whatever. But I didn't really get to, like, specifically, like see something like that, right? Like, I know the 49ers won. I know it was a close game. I watched some things from Dak Prescott where he was a little excuse me, not Dak. Brock Purdy. Purdy was a little under duress at times, but I don't remember watching thinking, oh man, CMC, he didn't have a great game. Now again, I'm not saying that's wrong. Like, he might not have had a great game, but I have to go back and kind of watch that. And maybe some things they did to slow him down, because that could be a recipe for the Cowboys in this game. Obviously, everybody is like, oh, slow down Christian McCaffrey. Clearly it's extremely difficult. But the Cowboys did something to maybe slow him down that they might go back to and see, like, all right, how do we do this? The tough thing is when you have a coach like Kyle Shanahan, he's also probably looking, okay, how'd they slow him down? So then he can maybe kind of play around what they were doing.
Yeah, and that's late in the season. People were banged up. I mean, Eric Armstead was back and forth. Javon Hargraves was not Javon Kinlaw. Sorry, I knew I was getting that wrong. Javon Kinlaw was not looking great. He was still having knee issues. He wasn't really playing at all. So, I mean, we've got some players back and we're all healthy. So I think that's a difference maker between now and last postseason.
All right, here we go. We got Damon in the chat. Shout out to Damon. He says, shout out to the GOAT, Coach Dezi. He ain't lying. All right. What does IYO mean? In your opinion? In your opinion. All right. What are the chances that Brock Purdy has lingering issues with his arm, if any? What are signs? And what Damon is alluding to here is obviously Dak Prescott had an injury over the offseason. We have talked about it on here where there actually weren't very many studies on that specific surgery that he had because it's fairly new. And even with it being new, you had 2020 where they weren't doing surgeries because of COVID. So, I mean, there's a very small sample size of this type of surgery and the recovery of it, which why nobody really knew the timetable of what it was going to be outside of the people that were directly correlated with Brock Purdy. But as of right now, all signs look good. But what are your thoughts on just recovering from surgery and then maybe a surgery like this specifically?
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Damon. This is a great question. And it's just like Crock had just said, it's a little bit difficult to answer because there's not a lot of data out there, especially in the professional realm. This was a surgery that just came around in like 2016, 2017. Now, repairs of the UCL have been around forever. There's different iterations. And so this was one where they utilized something called a surgical tape, a specific type of suture that is put in at the same time as the repair to reinforce the repair. And with this, it's really changed the game as far as recovery and return to play. Now, how long? What's the life of that? That's, to be seen. I think it's going to be outstanding, though. I mean, if you look at Nick Chubb, we talked about his injury before. And right now it looks like the only thing he tore in that knee was his MCL. And he had previously had reconstruction in that knee. So his ACL was in so well that if anything, it's only partially torn. They'll know better when they get in there. But I say that to say sometimes these reconstructions and these surgeries can be done to a degree that is stronger than before the injury. And so especially with utilization of this surgical tape that they put in there, I think it's pretty solid. I don't foresee any issues. The only thing I would say is, when he's old like me, he'll end up with some arthritis in his elbow, but that's not going to impair him in his career, I don't think.
All right, so all signs are pointing in a positive direction for Brock Purdy and his recovery. And, he's been tremendous. So one of the conversations that I've had on here is why is he not considered an MVP candidate? All right, this is a guy that is functioning his offense to the highest ability. I've talked about how it would be hard to find 5 quarterbacks or maybe even 3 quarterbacks that are playing in their offense better than he's playing in his offense. And I think a lot of the love for the 49ers in the offense goes toward Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Kyle Shanahan. You got Trent Williams, and everybody names all these other players. But one thing that we've noticed since seeing a lot of different quarterbacks play for the 49ers, you've seen a lot of good from Jimmy Garoppolo, but there was also a lot of weird as well. Trey Lance never really got going in the offense at all. We watched Brian Hoyer. We watched all these other guys in the offense. This is the best version of it that we've seen with this guy. So at what point do we give him a lot more credit? And I think people are starting to kind of come around to it. Like, maybe this Mr. Irrelevant kid is just a gamer. Maybe he's just a baller. Maybe he's actually really good. And it's not just all the weapons and players and things around him that they have. So what are so maybe your thoughts on Brock? I guess I can ask it this way. If his name wasn't Brock Purdy and he was, 6'1", 220 pounds, and let's say his name was Trevor Lawrence and he's 6'6", 230 pounds or whatever, and he was number 1 overall pick, would they be viewing what Brock is doing different than how they are right now?
Yeah, of course they would. This is the same argument. I used to get in terrible arguments, debates with guys in my school back in the day over Montana better than Marino. And this was the same conversation. It was Joe is only good because of the people he has around him. because Joe wasn't built, this big, massive guy. He didn't have the look, right? He didn't have all the things that people generally look at an MVP caliber quarterback. But the numbers are there. The numbers are there. And for us as 49er fans, we know what this looked like with other quarterbacks at the helm, right? We saw what this looked like with Jimmy Garoppolo. And we've seen what it looks like with Trey Lance at the helm, although Trey didn't have all the experience. We can go down that rabbit hole. But this is something different. I think when I was on with you last year and you asked me about Brock shortly after he got called up off the bench, I was like, I love this kid. There's something about him that's just different. And I could see it right away. But I'm a 49er fan. He still doesn't get any love. I sit here and watch Get Up and all these shows on ESPN, and they're not talking about him. If the 49ers are mentioned, they're all talking about CMC, as they should. He's fantastic, and he's on track to have like a 2,000-yard year. But Brock deserves to be in the conversation for sure.
It's been interesting because even, with me, everybody that's listened to this knows that I came into this cautiously optimistic about Brock. Whereas, okay, I thought he played very well last year. And I think I even went as far as to say, one of the sayings I had was, I thought what he did was special, but I didn't think that he was special. All right. Like, those are my words. And the more I watch him, whatever it is that is special about him, it's hard to pinpoint that thing that's so exceptional that no one else can do it. But the consistency in which he just does his job, which even within that is special, he's doing it at the highest degree. So some of the people, I think it was Willie Snead that came out and was like, oh man, it kind of reminds me of Drew Brees, the way he carries himself, etc., blah, blah. And I remember saying, oh, you hope that he's like a Drew Brees or a Tom Brady, but those guys they're unicorns for a reason, right? Like, they're the exception to the rule. And I always tell people anybody could be the exception. And right now is coming off, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but he hasn't lost a football game. Like, he's never lost a game that he's finished. We know he lost the game, technically, the Eagles game, but he has never lost a game that he's finished. So there's people have to start looking at it like, clearly his team is really good, but he's doing something to see now the best version of this Kyle Shanahan offense that we've ever seen.
Yeah, I think it's going to take something. Unfortunately, for the Josh Allens, for the Patrick Mahomes, they're always going to pass this eye test on a different level, right? So for those that are still the air quote underdogs, I think they have to do something so above and beyond what's expected of those quarterbacks for him to be in the same conversation. He's going to have to win Super Bowls. He's going to have to, have an undefeated season. He's going to have these things in order to kind of overcome, because again, the MVP, that's voted on by the Associated Press. And so until the press is collectively saying that he's there, then it's not going to happen. But I do believe he's an MVP caliber candidate at this point. But I'm a 49er fan. I'm highly biased.
Right. I think I'm in that same ballpark. All right. We got Coco Puff here, and he says, outside of 49er fans, Brock will need to win the Super Bowl in order for people to really think he is MVP level, just like early years of Tom Brady. And I remember that. But even then, it was more justified with Tom Brady's early years because you could see how much they relied on the defense. The 49ers are not relying on the defense right now. Matter of fact, I said it's the opposite. I think, there has been a step back in the defense, just exactly how good they are. And we'll see if that continues throughout the year. Maybe they start to click and get back to what we saw last year, which was the best defense in the league. Still right now, top 5. But you could feel that kind of step back. I think they're top 5 right now because of the offense. Like, the offense is so good and it's clicking at such a high level, and that is led by Brock Purdy. Like, that wasn't the conversation with the early years Patriots. I mean, you look at how they, were having to win. It's like, hey, can we win this game 13-10? Right now, like, Brock Purdy's like, can we win this game 35-14? And I know it's a different game. It's more wide open passing. Maybe if Tom Brady stepped into this era, he might have put up more numbers early on. But right now, eh, the Brock Purdy is not relying on the defense to be good.
Right.
It's him. Like he's going out there and he's doing it. So I do hear what you're saying about early years Tom Brady, but I, and again, I don't want to get too crazy with this. But what we've seen to this point, because that's all we can go off of. And I've been the guy that's, well, all we can go off is this, but these things might happen, or let's take a look at this and maybe this. I was the one again, cautiously optimistic. So far, there hasn't been anything that shows he's not the person that we've seen. So I don't know what the end is, like the end result of this is. Is it like, one of the greatest quarterbacks ever? And that's hard to fathom that you get that with the last pick in the draft. But right now, all signs are pointing to a guy that is just really good. And like I said, should be higher in MVP voting. Right now, he's still not, I feel like not as high as he should be. All right, so let's look at the MVP odds of the NFL right now. I'm gonna pull those up and let's see. Here we go. And boom. So this is from 21 hours ago. All right, 21 hours ago. Let's share this screen so y'all can see this as well.
Great
And
content, Croc. I didn't even know this existed.
you said what?
It says great content. I didn't even know this existed.
Oh yeah, you got MVP odds. All right, so current in 2023 NFL MVP odds, and you have to scroll and boom, they got Christian McCaffrey ahead of Brock Purdy. So they got Brock Purdy at plus 2,000. All right, and his odds in the preseason were pretty much like where is he at? Right here, plus 4,500. So um, didn't really have much of a chance early in the season. Clearly, he's climbing up right now, but this guy's ahead of him. Justin Herbert ahead of him. Christian McCaffrey ahead of him. Lamar Jackson ahead of him. Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Tua, Josh. So to me, that just continues to go to show that there's a certain level of, I don't even want to say like disrespect. That's not the word I want to use here, but a certain level of non-believers. Non-believers. That's what it comes off to me as. We do got Jimmy Kwan right here. He says the Peacock special on Montana spoke about why Joe was accurate. Montana replied he threw the ball exactly where it was designed in practice. I think Brock has that same vision and anticipation, and I think that is kind of catapulting him a little bit up the charts as far as MVP. How is a guy that has not turned the ball over? I get it; these guys maybe have more touchdown passes, but team is undefeated, highest scoring offense in the league, or one of the highest scoring, but off to the best start of the 49ers history. All right, I say highest scoring, but the Dolphins by default might be higher because they scored 70 points on the Broncos. But I just don't understand how he's not just a little bit higher. Is that just that bias towards a little quarterback that was last pick in the draft?
I think so. I think so.
Yeah.
I was talking about something early. I've mentioned a couple times in the Twitterverse and maybe even in a Twitter space, but there's something I like to call the Brock Purdy effect. And that is there is a difference that I'm seeing throughout the team in coaching and all these things where his presence, it's basically there is a standard that comes with being around him, right? If you're on a team with Brock Purdy, there's a standard, there's an expectation there. And I think you're seeing an improvement in that in all players. There's a confidence that's coming from that. So a question I have for you, because I think somebody brought it up. I know I brought it up somewhere, I don't even know, where Kyle Shanahan just looks freer. He just seems more relaxed. And I'm not saying he's out there giggling and smiling like a schoolgirl, but you see it with these extra efforts, right? He's going for fourth downs. He's trusting his quarterback. He's doing these things that we haven't seen him do with other quarterbacks before. With that said, do you think it's because of Brock, or do you think it has more to do with the signing of the extension of his contract that happened before the season started?
I think it's a combination of two things, but not the contract extension. I think for him, he knew that was like, it's like, look, I coach well, like that's what comes with it. I think it's Brock being Brock and seeing the field the way he does. And I think really you being able to utilize Christian McCaffrey as at his disposal. I mean, this is Christian McCaffrey, what he brings. And I saw someone else say, like, right now, McCaffrey, right here, I think it's right here. Here we go, Cleo Young. I think our MVP so far has been Christian McCaffrey. And I think if there's any kind of pushback on what Brock Purdy is doing, not pushback, but just like the hype on it, at least from me and others in the 49ers community, uh, the one thing is, well, look at how much pressure CMC takes off of him. If he doesn't see something there, he can just check it down to Christian McCaffrey, and or they could throw a screen to Christian McCaffrey. I watched the Giants game. It started off a little weird. Then what did Kyle Shanahan do? Throw a screen to Debo Samuel, throw a screen to Christian McCaffrey. Kind of got the offense rolling a little bit. With how well CMC is running, I get it. Obviously, we just watched him score 4 touchdowns in the last game against the Cardinals. But man, I think like for Kyle, it's I have everything I need right now. Like I have my quarterback, I have my running back, I have these receivers, I got my tight end that I can throw it to him 10 times in one game and one time in the next game. We got a top defense in the league. I think he's viewing all that. And I think that like he's just way less stressed about anything. He knows what he's gonna get. I feel like we know what we're gonna get from Brock on a play to play basis. I think Kyle knows that, and I think because Kyle knows that, I think that's kind of freed him up, and then also to be able to say, all right, now I know what I'm getting from my quarterback, and I can utilize all these weapons at my disposal.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, we got this wasn't a super chat, but I will get to that one real quick. We got Damon Dickerson here, and he says Drew Brees had 5 consecutive 5,000-yard seasons without an MVP. So maybe there is a bias towards short quarterbacks.
Yes.
I did want to talk about this one here. And we got Elvis in the chat. Shout out to Elvis. He says, you guys are being way too biased. Brock is doing his job very well. Is not as pretty as the other MVP candidates, but he's winning. He hasn't faced any adversity yet either.
I would say two things to that, Elvis. Number one, there's no greater adversity than an injury and a potential season-ending injury, and he's overcome that. So that's adversity one that I would point out. Adversity number two, he went through the entire postseason last year having very limited snaps and did very well with adversity. I don't think this kid is going to crack. And I mean, that's again, I've said it, I'm biased. I'm a 49er fan, but also being a 49er fan, you've seen all these players go through different things more so than the general public. So I think that that's just who he is and how he's made. But, I agree. We've got to go against the Kansas Cities. We've got to go against the Buffaloes and the Miamis. And, this will be a great test here against Dallas. Maybe.
When I look at him and just, you talked about like just kind of how he is, I think a big part of this, and not to get all spiritual and, everybody believes in a different higher being, or maybe you
go
don't.
Go there.
But I saw a video from him in college, and he was talking about like his faith in God. And there are people, right, with whatever you believe in. But if you have that higher being that you believe in, that higher being could be your parents or something. I don't know. But clearly his faith is so strong that he feels like anything that he's doing or whatever he's faced with, like if he feels like God like has his back, not in the sense of, the outcome of wins or losses, but just his faith in him and like realizing who he is personally. So I think because of his faith, this might just be who he is, right? Like there are some people that maybe don't, so then maybe they go up and down. They ride the wave because they don't have a strong faith in something. But ever since we've seen him, and even if, again, you go back to listening to him talk when he was in college, he's always been the very same person.
Yes.
So his preparation is the same. His faith is the same. His ability hasn't changed, but it's like, hey, I'm in a great situation. I got my trust in God and I have this certain faith, and like, this is me. And I really think that that's what we're seeing. So I hear you with the hasn't faced adversity thing. That was something that I brought up, not from the extent of just like, he hasn't lost, right? So like when we talk about facing adversity, he hasn't even lost in the NFL yet. So he hasn't seen like that type, but I don't think that's going to rattle him because of his faith in the Lord. That's how it feels to me.
Yeah. I mean, the perspective's different, right? When you believe in something greater, then you know you're only a part of it. It humbles you and it keeps your perspective in alignment. You know, he doesn't get caught up in social media. He's not going to care as much of what people say. He knows what his ability is. He knows, you know, he's got that connection. And I think that's what we see on the field for sure. I agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's gonna do it for this episode. Any last take, Coach Dezi,
I
on the
mean,
Dallas Cowboys?
we're winning. It's a
I
W.
love it.
It's happening. We're going
It's
to do it. And
happening.
Christian McCaffrey's going to run. And I think that I think Dak is still going to struggle in the red zone. So,
And that's the
and it's
biggest difference
home.
right
It's
there.
home, baby.
Yeah.
It's home.
I was gonna go. First of all, hold on, before we get out of here. They are freaking nuts for these prices of this game. A couple years ago, I went to the 49ers Cowboy, I talked about earlier, but I went to the 49ers Cowboy playoff game. And for standing room tickets at AT&T Stadium, whatever, Dallas Cowboys, because I went late. I decided to go late. So I got the little standing room tickets. I paid $250, right? And it was cool. It was cool. Like, okay, $250, like cool. They're talking about for this regular season, week 5 game. It's dang near $400 for standing room tickets. At least that's what I've seen floating around so far. Like from some of my buddies that are like, "Hey, you guys trying to go to the game?" Damn near felt like $300 and something for a standing room for a regular seat. That's right. That's highway robbery. Y'all will not see me. Uh, y'all will not see me at that game at all.
Yeah, that's why I couldn't go to a football game. I never saw the 49ers play until I was an adult. My mom was a single parent. We could not afford tickets.
Crazy. I mean, yeah, I can't. My daughter, she's into football now, and she's like, she loves it. Luckily, first of all, if you are a girl, and I don't know how many young ladies are watching this right now, but if you are a young lady, girl, whatever, and you're into football, this is the perfect time. My daughter, my 7-year-old daughter, she's coming up at the right time because they have, obviously, they've always had flag football for girls, but they got 7-on-7. It's like a big thing now. It's been really big for the boys. Now it's getting big for the girls. They have high school football. I talked about how I coach at Edison High School, and I only go one day a week. I go Tuesday evenings to the practice, and that's a defensive day. And shout out to my coach, man. Hey, man, I got former 49ers on my staff, man. Des Bishop, he played linebacker for the 49ers. Lavelle Hawkins, he didn't have a long career there I mean, he was only there for the preseason. He should have been there longer, but there was a little bit of roster politics going on. But shout out to my coaches at Edison. But anyways, uh, Tuesdays we get kicked off the field because girls are coming on to play a flag football game. So they play their games on Tuesdays. I mean, and I was just like shocked to see that because the South, I just came from Arkansas. The South is behind. You know, the South is behind. So like they didn't have like the girl stuff. I come here and it's like it's a big thing where girls flag football for their high schools,
It's coming
girls
up.
7-on-7. I mean, it is coming up. So all girls out there, there's hope after all. They're giving away scholarships for girls to play flag football at colleges. I mean, it's getting really big. So
No, I
um,
love it. I love it. I went to the Bucks game, the preseason game to promote girlfriends in football, and there was a whole, there was a bunch of tailgaters, a bunch of little girls, and they were like, "Oh, we all play flag football," and I was like, "Y'all are my heroes. I wanted to play back in, a while ago, not that long ago,
yeah.
but I love
um,
it. I love it. Is
we,
your
we
daughter's
got some
playing?
people in the chat. We got some people in the chat saying Fresno, E House, I saw 559 Fresno. There's two Edisons. There's Fresno, or there are probably multiple, but the ones that are kind of Edison has or Stockton has their Edison, and Fresno has an Edison. And Edison in Fresno is really good. I actually went to high school in Fresno my freshman year. I went to Sunnyside High School. We played against Edison. They kicked our butt. So I'm very familiar with them, but that's not the Edison I coach at. I coach at the Edison in Stockton, so I just want to make that clear. The conversation all offseason was what would Trey look like with an offseason of starting reps? Brock hasn't had a legit offseason, just one training camp. Why doesn't Brock get the same courtesy? You want to respond to that, Coach Dezi?
Say it louder, Damon. Say it louder, my friend. Yes, that's a great point. And, again, this guy is unstoppable. Give him the credit. Give him the credit. Thank you, Damon. Maybe you should read it again. There's
All
nothing to
right.
say, but 100% agreement.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just he's been groomed and prepared for this. And when we talk about Trey, and I don't want to get too much in, he's on the enemy side now. All right, but there was a lot of things that he needed that he just wasn't able to get. He played 1 year as a freshman at North Dakota State and was exceptional, right? I mean, undefeated, didn't throw a pick, like all these great things, but he missed a lot of what goes into playing the quarterback position. I think a lot of us realized that, and a lot of us wanted to see him get that opportunity, kind of experience those things. This was not the team he was going to really be able to get that true opportunity for. So it's unfortunate the situation with Trey. Unfortunate for him. Fortunately for the 49ers, they did come across Brock Purdy, and he's a guy that was everything that they needed. He had the experience. He's going through ups and downs. He's going through a lot of adversity in college. A lot of starting reps under his belt. And I think he was more prepared and equipped to take on what the 49ers were and are. So I think that's a lot of the difference here. As far as why doesn't Brock get the same courtesy as far as an offseason, a legit offseason? Brock doesn't need it. He doesn't need it. He doesn't need that. Now maybe the weapons is different, but as far as having a true offseason, I don't think Brock needs it, man. And he's showing that now.
It's like the Nick Bosa of quarterback, right?
Right. Nick Bosa come in and he's still one of our higher pressure guys in the NFL. We do need him to finish, and that's going to be a big thing this game against the Dallas Cowboys. You know, uh, you got to finish at the quarterback, got to get those sacks. And I think right now, I haven't seen the impact plays from our defensive line. That's what the 49ers are missing right now. You know,
Which is interesting. I had big expectations for them. I mean, I really did. I thought they were just going to be eaten all day, every game.
they are getting pressure, but they're not having the impactful plays. Like
Right.
just think right now in any game this season, if a 49ers edge rusher had the 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles that TJ Watt had week 1. And I know that Drake Jackson had 3 sacks. It felt like, and that's why I was like, people are like, oh, Drake is here. Drake Jackson's here. He's ready. And I'm like, you got to look at how he got the sacks. I felt like it was high effort sacks as opposed to just I'm beating this tackle's ass right from the snap and getting to your quarterback before he can even make a move. So right now, I think the 49ers need that guy that's going to really finish. And they're going to need it in this game against Dallas Cowboys. You don't want Dallas to get going. You don't want Dallas to get any type of confidence. They can throw the ball well. They've had an explosive passing game with CeeDee Lamb. He's done well. So you just want to make sure that everything that they want to do is really slowed down. I think it starts with uh, really getting after Dak and making him uncomfortable. If you do that early on, you're gonna have to sack him. You're gonna have to hit him. You're gonna have to force a fumble on him. You do that, you'll be all right. But
Yeah, really,
so
really
far, I don't
interesting.
think
And
the defense has done that.
I'm interested in our offense versus their defense. Really interested in that.
Uh, Dynamite Dave says road 200 is 800 a piece. What? That's crazy. That is crazy. So I know who won't be at the game. Eric Crocker. I wanted to be there, but man, I'm looking at those prices, and for me in general, just typically, and I'll tell anybody this: the best place to watch a football game is at home. That is the best place to watch a football game, in my opinion. At home on your couch, you got your snacks, you got your food, you got your drink, whatever you want. It's the cheapest any. You get to hear the commentating, right? Like when you're at the game, you don't hear anything. Like
Yeah.
a guy gets hurt, you don't know what's the. You got to check your phone and see what's going on with the injury. You don't get the updates. The best place to watch a football game is at home. Uh, so if I'm not getting a deal on the ticket, I ain't going. I'll watch it from the crib. But I did want to either try to tailgate, maybe go to a bar and watch the game. Like I feel like that would have been fun. But I got some Bleacher Report stuff before and after the game, so that's kind of handcuffed me, and I can't go and do anything. So, anyways, appreciate everybody. Here we go. We got Mark G with the super chat. He says Tremaine Johnson from Edison brought the Rams chant. Yeah, shout out to my guy True, man. True, had a good career with the Rams. Ended up making a lot of money for the Jets. I would train Tremaine in the offseason sometimes. I worked with him several times on some of his stuff. I mean, even when he was making big money, he would still come and work with me. Sometimes I'd have my young defensive backs, they train with him, and that was cool. And if they beat him at anything, he'd give them like $100. So it was cool. Trumaine was a really good guy. I haven't heard from him in a while, but True is a great guy. Great guy. But all right, that's going to do it for this episode of the Eric Crocker Show. Appreciate everybody that tuned in. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. But we're going to have to try to do a film session with Greg. I have to fit it in. It's like once things start getting too staggered, my day picks up. It's kind of hard. So we're going to figure out how to get Greg in here to break down some film on quarterbacks. I am going to have a crossover episode with a special guest, my big brother. So I can't wait to have that. Hopefully we do that tomorrow. All right. But until then, I'll see y'all next time. Peace.